of the National Government. Kia ora, Mr Speaker.
Paul Goldsmith.
Well, thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise to speak on this bill, and I must say I do find it very interesting that we have the Speaker from the Greens worried about New Zealand's dependence on imported oil and how dangerous this is, and that most of his time is spent trying to stop us from actually increasing the flow of our own indigenous oil because he won't allow anything to happen or any risk to be taken. And so there's a bit of a contradiction there. The best way that we can get ourselves free from a dependence on foreign oil is to be able to drill some of our own. But the reality is that I'm certainly not hearing a clamour in my neighbourhood or anywhere where I go for more biofuels. I'm not finding people running up to me on the street saying, where are these more biofuels? And interestingly, I think there was a grand total of 10 people who queued up to submit on this sustainable biofuel bill. So again, I don't think this is the number one top issue on people's minds. I think what the number one issue on people's minds is actually trying to make ends meet in difficult times. And trying to make ends meet in difficult times is about trying to make sure that the fuel bills are as low as they can be. And that's why I'm not surprised there's not a great deal of enthusiasm for well-meaning and well-intentioned schemes which ultimately put up the cost of petrol. People want to get from A to B at the cheapest way possible, and they want to get on with their lives, make a living, get their children from to where they need to go, and to run their businesses in the most efficient manner. And that's what we're focused on, rather than perhaps the priorities of the Greens in this regard. I'm not surprised either that there hasn't been much enthusiasm for the biodiesel grant scheme, again, because I don't think the public is clamouring for what we're talking about here. And so I think it's very sensible that the Select Committee recommended that we don't proceed with this bill. The debate involves quite a lot of hyperbole. I think Mr Graham referred to genocide. I think that might be a bit over the top with what we're dealing with here. But what the biofuel industry does demonstrate to me, I think, is a classic example of the law of unintended consequences through legislation's good intentions, trying to introduce biofuels and reduce carbon emissions has led to all sorts of problems all around the world, raising the price of grain, leading to starvation. And what surprises me is that the solution that's proffered here is just a slightly cleverer new subsidy or set of interventions or distortions in the market. So somehow we'll be able to get around it by ever more clever regulation, which is missing the point entirely. Is when you start to subsidise and distort the economy in this way by trying to encourage some group which the market doesn't recognise, then you inevitably lead to these unintended consequences and greater economic costs for everybody to bear. And so I'm not at all surprised that the result of the great subsidies for biofuels in the United States has been a rotten one and an unhelpful one. And so I think we need to be a lot more circumspect about how we go about these things. If it doesn't stack up to use tallow as a biofuel in an economic sense, well, if it does stack up, they'll be using it, and there must be some other more useful thing to do with this product than it is to. Thank you very much. I don't think I'll take that advice, Minister. I think if it makes sense, the market will reward it, and I think that's the point that we need to recognise. And so I don't have any great faith in the ability of the Green Party to work out exactly what people want in this area of biofuels, and I think it would be far better placed to rely on what people want, and they want to get from A to B in their cars as cheaply as possible. And I think what we're doing here in our support for the existing provisions of the Energy Fuels Levies and Reference Act, which allows any regulations that would be set up if there was a great enthusiasm for biofuel, then I think I'm very comfortable with that. and I'm very comfortable with the regulations we've got in place. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if further down the line, if there was a genuinely effective biofuel which was cheaper than the alternatives, then it'll take off. But I don't think this bill, in its attempt to try and perfect a distortion in the market, will solve any of the problems. So I'm afraid I'll have to oppose this bill.
Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Ruth Dyson.
It's just become blinding.